Becoming Yourself with Dr. Maeve Keneally, Episode 6. This podcast brings together wisdom and tools from coaching, clinical psychology, and mental health research to help you become who you want to be. All right, everyone. The podcast is back after a summer break, and we are going to talk about feelings. So, what are feelings? Feelings are words we give to physical sensations in our bodies. So joy or sadness or anxiety or anticipation, relief. All of these words are things that we've used to describe how we feel in our bodies. And feelings are wonderful. They're all of the poems and novels, they're all written about feelings. They're wonderful and they're painful and intense. And we're probably in this coaching world or in life in general, we'd like to have more of the good feelings and fewer of the bad feelings. But they're also what makes life meaningful. They give our lives meaning. They make us human in some kind of way. We probably don't want to have no feelings ever. If you could choose now to get rid of all of the pain and also all of the joy and excitement and just feel the same way about everything all the time, you probably wouldn't do it. In some ways, we want to feel sad about certain things. There are awful things happening in the world. And as you go through life, you have disappointments and losses, and feeling awful about those things, feeling sad about those things is part of being alive and part of what makes the joyful moments have meaning and be joyful. So when I started getting interested in self-development and self-improvement and coaching, and when I got a coach, I hated any mention of feelings. It seemed really hocus pocus to me and like, no, that doesn't matter. What I care about is techniques and evidence and tools that will make me more efficient and help me stop procrastinating and make me be a better version of myself. And all of this feeling stuff seemed really irrelevant. I was just like, yeah, whatever, I don't care. I think that in itself is really telling, because a lot of the time it's kind of points to how disconnected I was with my own feelings. I didn't really know how I felt most of the time. And I didn't know what most feelings felt like in my body, because I was living in a way to try and dull negative emotions as much as possible with television or with drinking or with exercising, kind of over-exercising in a sort of compulsive way, and eating in a way to try and dull emotions. And so I didn't really know what even very basic feelings felt like. I didn't know it until it became a problem, until I was very anxious, very sad. And there was no room for the kind of variation, because I wasn't interested in trying to listen to what I was feeling. It was irrelevant. And the way into being interested in feelings for me was through coaching and realizing that everything we do or don't do, for thinking about procrastination, is about feelings. This is something I talked about in episode 3 of the podcast about the procrastination, that we do things trying to not feel something often. Let's say if you're kind of cleaning or avoiding doing a big piece of work by answering emails that kind of are easier, it's because starting that big piece of work might make you feel anxious, or it might make you feel regret at not having started sooner, or some other negative emotion that you're kind of maybe even subconsciously you're anticipating you might feel, and so you're not letting, you're avoiding that whole space. And I think once we start realizing how everything we do is driven by feelings, what I started realizing was how much I did things out of a fear of an emotion, a fear that in the future I might maybe feel negative. So let's try and make this a little bit more concrete. And a lot of this would be really, subconscious. People aren't aware of it. So let's say somebody has been on a few dates with someone, and it's going well and they're excited, and they are that comes with a fear that this other person could end it and they could be sad and rejected, and for whatever reason that feels really unacceptable to them. Feeling rejected or upset, they're not fun emotions, and so they might withdraw, or they might end the kind of burgeoning relationship to try and protect themselves from maybe getting hurt in the future, which of course might come at the cost of what could have been a wonderful love story, or full of other joyful, wonderful emotions that the person is depriving themselves of out of fear that they might get rejected, or that they might be disappointed, or it might end and be painful. And it might never have ended. That pain might not have ever happened. Somebody might not apply for a job to try and protect themselves from the unpleasant feeling of not getting it, or the regret at leaving their current job. And we all do this in different ways. We tie ourselves in knots to try and protect ourselves from a potential risk of having a feeling in the future that might never happen. And really, if you think about it, what are these bad feelings we're trying to protect ourselves from? They're vibrations in our body, or they're a knot in the pit of your stomach, or a tension in your shoulders. Let's say the rejection of not getting a job. It's a heavy feeling, a low feeling, and it's not pleasant. But really, if you really think about it, that's what it is. It's a feeling that is there for a while, and it's time limited. And we're so afraid of our feelings, we often make them last longer than they need to. We make them more intense. Especially if we think we shouldn't be feeling a certain way. Let's say feeling sad after a job interview, that's probably very accepted as a reaction. But let's say you feel sad after somebody ends a kind of a dating thing after one date. You might be judging yourself, saying, oh gee, I shouldn't feel like that. That's so silly or embarrassing or whatever. Or you're anxious about getting the food shop done for the week. You think, oh gee, this is ridiculous. I shouldn't be feeling this way. This is silly. It shouldn't be a worry. And that layer of judgment, of shame on top of the feeling makes it more intense, and also sometimes can mean you don't even know what the feeling is. You just have you're only aware of the kind of dust on top of the feeling that is clouding what's happening and feels unpleasant, shame or guilt about a feeling. So I heard this on a podcast from the Life Coach School, and the sentence was, the hardest thing you will ever do is feel your feelings. And it kind of blew my mind, because I think it's true. I think all of the terrifying things we could imagine in life, all of the things going wrong, really the way we'll feel it is feel those feelings. We'll feel them in our bodies, feel the rejection or the disappointment or the regret at having done the wrong thing, having behaved the wrong way, having lost something we wanted. And feeling those feelings is the hardest thing. I wonder how often we are doing things to try and protect ourselves from just ourselves being unkind about the decision in the future, or criticizing ourselves. How often are we making decisions to avoid future Maeve being mean to me? And what if you decided that you're going to be on your own side no matter what in the future, what would that look like? What kind of decisions would be possible for you? And then secondly, what if you went forward into the future less afraid of what you're going to feel? What if you accept right now that there's going to be pain and that there's going to be irritation and disappointment, and that isn't a problem and it doesn't mean failure and it won't be fun. There will be moments of great discomfort. But if you accept that going forward, maybe you can make decisions to get you where you want to be, rather than making decisions out of a worry that you might feel anxiety or that you might feel disappointment, that you might feel rejected. If you really want a certain job, or if you want a relationship and you're really scared of feeling rejection, it'll be really difficult to get to where you want to be. There has to be a moment of saying, I'm willing to feel that type of distress to get the thing that I want, that type of discomfort. Often it isn't even pain or distress, it's just discomfort. Am I willing to put myself into a situation where I've not been before, into a job where I don't know everything and I have to become a learner, I have to listen, I have to ask for help? And that might make me feel less centered, less certain, less wise. And we can protect ourselves from certain types of emotions. If you never go on a date, you'd never get the pain of romantic rejection. But you aren't avoiding all pain. I don't think there's such a thing as a pain-free or a discomfort-free life. Maybe you can pick what type. You don't, like what I just said, if you go on a date, if you never go on a date, you can't be rejected by somebody not asking you out on another date or saying no thank you. But there are other negative emotions that are going to happen. Maybe feeling less connected, not having the physical closeness of a romantic relationship. Maybe loneliness. Not leaving a job might mean you don't get the pain of regretting leaving the job, or of being rejected after the interview, but you have the pain of being a bit bored or uninspired or stagnant in your current work. And so I said earlier, I was so uncomfortable around any discussion of feelings because I was so uncomfortable with my feelings, I was afraid of feeling negative emotions. And I think what I realized is the fear of the emotion was much worse than the emotion. It's actually not that bad to be like, oh yeah, I'm anxious about this thing right now. Okay. And once you start opening the door to being curious about how you're feeling, and I'm definitely still learning this, I'll probably always be learning it, you can find much more nuance, that there is ups and downs all the time, and less of the dramatic big highs of sadness that come out of nowhere or anxiety that come out of nowhere, because you were curious before, curious to how you were feeling and allowing the feelings. And that's the big thing. In trying to control your feelings and trying to suppress and push away and make sure you never have a negative feeling, you don't allow. And in allowing the feelings, they become so much less intense. They're just there. It's just like, oh yeah, that's happening right now. And it gets processed. And there are different ways of kind of processing those feelings. Process sounds like the wrong word, but feeling the feeling. It could be through moving your body, or through holding your arms and giving yourself a hug. It could be crying, it could be laughing, it could be stretching, dancing, breathing, or singing, or just doing nothing at all and feeling your heartbeat or your breathing. And I think for everyone it's different. Some people feel anxiety in their stomach and as a type of a nausea, or like a pit in their stomach, or a tension in your shoulders. And all of these are just words we've used to try and capture these feelings, and they're different sensations for all of us. And becoming in touch with them again can be scary. It might mean that feelings you didn't want to feel and didn't feel acceptable are now accessible and are there, and you realize, oh gee, no, I don't want this. This isn't nice. But if you allow it, my bet is it will become less intense. Be like, oh yeah, there it is. And it'll last less long. And you can get rid of or let go of the guilt and the shame on top of the feeling. That even if it doesn't seem to make sense, you don't really understand it, this is what's happening right now. You're feeling low about this. Even if other people wouldn't understand it. So yeah, this episode is all about feelings, but really it isn't about feelings, it's about everything. It's about becoming who you want to be. What feelings are you avoiding feeling? Are you afraid of feeling? What types of decisions are you not making because you just think, oh no, I'll just be too unkind about this in the future. I'll be really critical and mean to myself about this. What would you do if you felt less scared about feeling rejected or disappointed or anxious in the future? What options would become available for you? And so, like I said, this is, something I'm definitely still learning, but for me, a kind of a testament to how out of touch I was with my feelings is even very basic things about like my physical body. I had no idea when I was hungry. I didn't really know what hunger felt like in my body because I ate when meal times were happening, when it suited the people around me, when it was like, air quotes, the right time to eat. And so even knowing what hunger feels like in your body, what thirst feels like, what your body is asking for, like getting enough sleep, all of the other emotions become easier to feel and easier to notice and less erratic, maybe less intense, when those basic needs are being met, when you're feeding yourself enough, when you're drinking enough, when you're resting, giving yourself enough sleep. Our emotions, although they sound separate to our bodies, they're felt in our bodies, and they're of course related to all of the other things happening in our bodies, like sleeping enough. And if you are more in tune to those things, to how your body is doing, it becomes easier to ride the waves of different emotions. And so they don't have to get in the way, and the fear of feeling those feelings doesn't have to get in the way of doing the things you want to do with your life, contributing in the way you want to contribute, and showing up how you want to show up. If you have any questions about feelings or this episode or any disagreements, please don't hesitate to get in touch with me on Instagram at Dr. Maeve Keneally, DrMaevConneely. You can also find me on my website, which is drmavekeneally.com. And so I work with people usually in 6-session chunks. And at the moment, the first session is free. So you can book an introductory call on the website now, and you can book a session to explore what you want, what you're thinking, what you're feeling. You don't have to be sure about what you want to change. You might just feel a bit stuck. And we can talk about it. And the first session is free. So get in touch with me. Thanks so much for listening, and take care, everyone.